What's going on, guys? Clifton Denny with On Your Own Outdoors. Hey guys, so today we're here to talk about what you're feeding your deer. So if you're like most of us down here in the South, what do you use, right? We use corn as an attractant to pull those deer in. Well, over the last few months, I have been trying to figure out a way to transition my deer from just getting that, as we call it, like candy, because that's what corn is basically to deer. Trying to get that transition from that over to something that is a little bit more healthy for the deer. The longevity of your deer herd, getting the protein down to the fawns, as well as building some antler growth and you know, just overall body mass of these deer and putting some weight on them. One thing that I see here on my 20 acres I've got at the house is during the summer month, I definitely see the deer's weight go down. Now I understand you're going to see that a little bit everywhere you go, but whenever I say it goes down, I'm talking about they kind of look like skin and bones. And so anyways, I was down at Max Prairie Wings, I was talking to Jody, and he introduced me to the Roasted Rack-A-Track by Stratton Seed Company. This is something that they carry, so it is considered a protein feed, but it's a little bit different than all your other protein feeds, or than most of your protein feeds. So with your traditional protein pellet, most of the time you're getting that 18 to 20% protein. With Rack-A-Track, you're not going to get that. You're going to get 16% protein is what the 50-pound bag of Rack-A-Track has. However, the big deal about it is that when you're transition, if you go from a hard transition to corn to protein pellets, you're going to have that little gap there. You're going to have that gap where the deer, you know, have to get used to it. They're coming in, they're taking 1 or 2 bites, and they're leaving. So the difference in between that and this is that this has corn mixed in. Now, why is that important? Well, if you've been feeding these deer corn for the last 2 years, 3 years, the life of this deer, right? So if you're trying to hunt this 4-year-old deer and you've been feeding him corn for 4 years, that transition might be a little bit more difficult to get them to go over to that protein. Deer are going to eat what they know that they need, but having some sort of attraction is going to be good, right? So that's where this Rack-A-Track comes in. It's a mixture of protein pellets and corn. So it's going to make that transition easier as far as getting the deer over to the protein. The other big deal about it is it says 16% versus that 18 or 20 that you get with something else. Well, if a deer is coming in and he's only eating 2 or 4 bites or a few bites of these protein pellets and he's leaving because, you know, it doesn't taste as good, well then are you actually getting that 18 or 20% protein into their diet? Where with this, even though it's 16% protein, it's still some sort of attraction. So those deer are going to come and they're going to fill up on it. So, you know, numbers, right? I would rather have 16% in a full tummy than 18% in 4 bites, if that makes any sense to you guys. So anyways, like I said, this is the Rack-A-Track brought to you by Stratton Seed Company. And what we're going to do is, my wife for Father's Day went out and bought me a Boss Buck 200-pound, it holds 200-pound feeder. It's a gravity feeder. I've never fed out of a gravity feeder here on my property. I like to spread my feed, and I've never used any protein. So this is going to be a little bit different. I'm kind of interested to see what's going to happen. So what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to get the feeder set up. We're going to get it out here on the property, and we are going to show y'all that transition from the corn straight over to this Rack-A-Track and see if there's any kind of difference, you know, if there's a lag time, if you will, in between those two, and then go from there. So yeah, guys, I'm going to quit talking. We're going to get this thing, get it in the back of the side-by-side, get this feeder put together, and we're going to get it out here, hang a camera on it for a few days, see what the photos look like, and get that right back over to you guys. So here we go. Anyways, we're going to go ahead, get this Rack-A-Track set up, get it in the feeder, get a camera over here, get everything rolling so we can see how well those deer transition from the corn to the Rack-A-Track. Again, having that 16% protein, for the healthier deer herd, right? It just is what it is. We're trying to get bigger horns. We're trying to get the longevity of our deer herd up. We're trying to make them more healthy, put on more weight. And then lastly, and probably most importantly, really, that none of us really ever talk about, is the fawns, right? Making sure the does are getting their protein so that they can get that down to their fawns. So let's go ahead, get this stuff in there, get a camera set up, let it alone. What's going on, guys? So hey, it's been about a month and a half since we tried this Rack-A-Track out. So I've hit it in one of my other videos. I'm going to hit it in some more, and that's process versus product. So when I got to Max Prairie Wings and I bought this Rack-A-Track, again, the thought process behind it was that It might not have the levels of protein as some of the other feed, but if it's similar to something your deer are already eating, they're gonna eat more of it, meaning that in the long run, they're gonna end up with more protein than they would if they was to just come get a bite of something that they actually don't enjoy, or they sit here and kind of, I don't wanna say gorge themselves, but they sit here and they eat more of this product. So the Rack Attract, let me just tell y'all a secret. So when I started this, I started with a new feeder in a new location, and I went to the Rack Attract. And let me tell you, after about 2.5 weeks, I had done called Jody down there at Max Prairie Wings, is where I got this at. And I was like, man, I don't know if this stuff works in my area. Now, when it comes to feed in general, you will find that. You'll find certain locations like corn, for instance. You know, here on my property, the north side, is kind of more up out of the bottoms. It seems like deer up in the pines will eat more of the corn than they do down here on the low end where there's acorns and those kind of things. There's a lot more vegetation down here than there is on the north end of my property. So you will find that with different products, right? So deer don't always eat the same thing everywhere they go. However, Jody was like, man, I'm telling you, this stuff works. So I started thinking outside of the box, because whenever I went down there the first time, I got 1 bag. When I went back, I got 3 more bags. They come in a 50-pound bag. And so originally the way that I fed my deer on my property were just like you see this out right now. Now, as you can see, there's not very much Rack Attract left on the ground. It's probably about yay much in a bag. It's been out a day and a half. So what I did is I took the feed out of the feeder and I naturally spreaded it out on the ground. And turns out my deer just don't like feeders. They've never been fed out of a feeder and they just don't like them. So the first night that this was out on the ground, number one, when I had it in the feeder, it was there for about 3 weeks, and I would have deer come close to it on camera. You'll see some photos on here, right? I had some deer come close to it, but I never got a picture of a deer actually eating out of it. The first night that I put this out on the ground, and it's, I don't know, crow fly, I'll show you on the camera in a minute. It's about 40 yards from where the feeder's at. Feeder's still up. Now they're eating out of the feeder. But anyways, so I put this stuff out on the ground. First night, I ended up with 80 pictures. Hadn't had any bucks on camera at all. And 5 of which were bucks, 4 of which were legal bucks. Now, they're no giants, but it's called Rack Attract, and it worked 110%. It's got a really good smell to it. It's got protein. And then I like the fact that it's got some corn mixed in with it, because I can mix that back and forth depending on the type of year. And it's not a hard transition for my deer. It's not straight from that protein over to corn, which I like to feed early season, kind of through the winter time. So they're getting that quick boost of energy. It's going to make that transition a lot easier. So number one, go ahead on the Rack Attract. That stuff's awesome. It worked exactly like it was supposed to. I'm gonna tell you a little funny story real quick. If you're still, tagging along this far in. So the night that I decided to put this out on the ground, the next day I actually found myself at Max Prairie Wings. Right? I was down there doing that Raven video. And so while I'm over there talking to one of the customers, which happened to be a buddy of mine, I guess it's the sales rep or whatever for Rack Attract comes in, and Jody was like, the only guy in the world says this stuff doesn't work is right over there. Well, Jody didn't know. I found this story extremely humorous, because Jody did not know at that time that I had spread it on the ground the night before, and I had a whole roll of photos that I wanted to show him because it had started working. So anyways, that's just a little food for thought. I talked about it before. If something's not working, try to change the process before you change the product. It's not always the product, it's your delivery method that you're trying to do, which is what I had done. I changed too much at one time. I put in a new feeder, new feed station, and a new feed all at one time, right? So if I could go back and do it again, what I would have done is I'd have went to the ground with this stuff where I usually feed at. Then I would have moved the 200 yards over, put it in the feeder, spread some around on the ground so they're used to it. They get it in their belly, they know it's good, and then that makes them want to go to that feeder. So anyways, guys, that's all I've got for you. If you're looking for something that the deer are going to love and it's going to give them some protein, go Stratton Seed Company and get you some of that Rack Attract. You're not going to be disappointed. I stand by it. Good hunting, guys. That's all I got for y'all this week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that little bell up top. You never know what kind of product we're going to do. Good hunting, guys.